I believe that we need to increase tiny home villages. If you look at the Countess Inn reports across the years, over 95% with variants across the years have said they would take tiny home villages as shelter and they would go there immediately. But as someone who's worked in shelters, folks outside are also afraid of shelters too, right? And so no one should be outside, absolutely no one. But the fact of the matter is, when you do the sweep, not only is it traumatic, but they just go across the street because the real bottleneck here is that we don't have the shelters and the housing for folks to go. So if we are working double time in a both and, what can we do innovatively, whether it's with the motel voucher program or other sort of things that we've used in the past, while we're building these tiny home villages and seeing what happens with the social housing PDA, so we can try to just stop the glut and move that blockage forward.
So again, are you against?
I am 100% against encampments. Yes, I don't.
Against encampments or sweeps?
The sweeps.
Okay.
Encampment sweeps. I mean, at this point, if they need to have folks in a specific area, I would just make sure that it wasn't an area that would be harmful in other ways to the folks who would be living there, because they are also humans too.
Yes.
So I do support Mayor Harrell's approach. His administration's approach is to do outreach, to offer services, and to offer shelter. And they have worked very well with the Unified Care Team, and they have also, through the Regional Homelessness Authority, contracted with Just Cause, which is the PDA group that also does lead and co-lead, and they very successfully resolved the encampments at Ballard Commons. So I think it is a model that works. But we have to be very clear that it is not humane or safe to have people residing in tents on the sidewalk, in parks, and in greenways. And I think that the city needs to be more proactive. So right now, to deal with the issue, you have to file so many find it, fix it, and somebody has to be shot, or there has to be a fire before anything is done. As soon as a tent shows up, as soon as an RV is there, we get a community service officer out there. We get somebody from Just Cause. We get somebody, a social worker, who can deal with the issues and get somebody into shelter and housed.
I think that the biggest conflict I'm hearing about Jackson Park is that it feels inaccessible to people, and that we don't have a lot of land. That's really the biggest scarcity area that we don't have is land, right? And so speaking with Jackson Park for All, that's sort of their idea is like, well, here's this big swath of land that we can't really access. Is it a park? And if so, we should access it. If it's not, what would it look like to be able to have that, perhaps have eco-villages or other sorts of green homes?
So you support green space rather than housing development?
You can have both. You could have, you don't have to have one or the other.
Okay.
So at the moment, housing, a voter initiative was passed, I believe it's Initiative 42, that prohibits housing being built there. It can only be park. If you use it for a different use, it has to be the equal use. So basically it's golf, it has to be golf, or it has to be park. So right now that would require a voter initiative or a lawsuit, and I don't think
and right now one is on the table that is being proposed.
Well, we have to see what happens, but at the moment it's illegal at the moment. So housing is not an option at this time.
My understanding is, I think that for golf, it's a sport. I know that some of the high schools go and play there. It's not that the entire golf course will go away, but again, we have a crisis for housing that's actually in green spaces, because just because we have affordable housing, folks want to live in green spaces too. They don't always want to live in concrete, right? And so I think it's really important that we actually see how revenue neutral it is and go from there.
Oh, well, I think that obviously we need to have, it keeps coming back to, we need to have more police officers, but I also think that if we had community service officers who that was their particular precinct in which they could be in the neighborhood, we could have community ambassadors that would be there to greet people, talk to people, really just create a sense that somebody is paying attention. It will be nice when we actually have the development where the Kraken is. Some of that development opens, and so we are bringing more people to the transit station and to the area, so there's more activity and things to do, which I think help people feel, helps deal with crime and makes people want to be in that space.
Yeah, so up until last year, I lived pretty much along Aurora Avenue from Licton Springs up to 145th. And the biggest thing that I think is happening with the increase of crime is the crime is not necessarily increasing. That's always been an area where folks were unhoused, or there was always, something sort of going on. And so what may be happening is that sort of that got disrupted. And instead of saying, hey, how can we use this opportunity to provide services, to have the transport, to have new organizations show up at that transit center, we just sort of built it. And so I would love to see, especially a mixed-use development in that space, and have housing, have services, have resources, where there's a third place, not just for, for everyone, all of our neighbors to go. And that can not only be a place for folks to be able to get the help that they need, and to be able to get off of the street, but also for us all to get to know each other and to build a community again. Yeah, I think that again, it goes back to the real upstream issue here is the fact that there are so many different industries, so many different areas where folks are underpaid, and they are asking for increases. And they're all the jobs that we really need: social workers, bus drivers, things like that. So what I would do to make sure that we have the security, to have the services, is to make sure that we really are investing in those core root solutions to have wage parity.